Hey there, Alex here. It's been a while since I tried a Sony phone, and while I've been interested in their recent models, their launch strategy and pricing here in Singapore hasn't been that attractive. However, since they launched their official store on Shopee, I've been seeing better promotions from them. So during the recent 12/12 sales, I finally ordered the 5 Mark III. Before I talk about the phone itself, I just want to say that I hope Sony can improve on their launch strategy. The 5 Mark III was announced in April and only started shipping here in Singapore 8 months later. Even the Xperia Pro I was released here before the 5 Mark III, which is just strange. Anyway, let's start by talking about what comes with the phone. We get a 30-watt charger, which is nice to see, a USB-C cable, and that's about it. We don't even get the MH750 earphones anymore, which is a shame because those are actually pretty decent sounding. While I did get a free case during the pre-order promotion, it would be nice to have a pre-installed screen protector as well, so that consumers can start using the phone immediately after getting it. The design of the phone is slim and long like most of the recent Sony devices thanks to the taller screen aspect ratio. While I prefer the matte finish and flatter design of the 1 Mark III, this is not bad either. It's a clean looking design. The green color option here looks pretty good, but I really wished we had the silver option here. Build quality is pretty great overall, though the haptic feedback feels a little looser. The phone is actually slimmer than even the S10e, which makes it really easy to hold one-handed, and since I've been using the S10e, I'm used to a side-mounted fingerprint sensor. The sensor itself is actually quite fast and accurate, but I've noticed that there is a slight delay before the screen wakes up. It doesn't really bother me too much, but it's just weird that it's slower than even the S10e. It has a Google Assistant button as well, but since I don't really use that feature, it would be nice to be able to reprogram that button. This is the first time I'm using a phone with a 21:9 aspect ratio, and I actually love it. I can see more content when using social media apps, it makes split screen mode actually usable, it's great for reading manhwa, and watching 21:9 content like Arcane or Netflix is incredibly enjoyable. I know the pillar box doesn't look as great for content that isn't as wide, but on the bright side, it works great for live streams on YouTube since the screen is long enough to fit the live chat without making the video too small. It also makes typing easier as well, like when replying to messages or YouTube comments, I can see more of the message while composing my reply. This aspect ratio is even good for gaming, since there is more room for on-screen controls. Anyway, the quality of the display itself is pretty good. While it's just a Full HD Plus display, it's still really sharp looking, and I like the creator mode, which provides more accurate colors. The brightness could be a bit better, but it's still sufficient for outdoor use. It also has a high refresh rate mode, which runs at 120Hz most of the time. It only drops down to 60Hz when using the camera, Google Maps, or when playing games with the default balanced profile. But you can use the performance profile to make the screen run at 120Hz if you want to play a game that supports a higher refresh rate. I do notice a very slight color shift at low brightness when I turn on the higher refresh rate, but it's not enough to bother me at all. The 5 Mark III is lacking wireless charging, but that's not really a deal breaker for me. It still has a nice set of front-firing stereo speakers, it is water and dust resistant, and it even has advanced features like a micro SD card slot and a 3.5mm audio jack. While Sony didn't mention any dedicated DAC, they did say the audio output is supposed to be good, and that's pretty accurate. It doesn't have a ton of power, so it doesn't drive higher impedance earphones as well, but the output is clean and neutral sounding, which is exactly what I like. Not really a huge surprise here since Sony does have some pretty great audio products. In terms of specifications, despite its smaller size, the 5 Mark III is packing top-of-the-line hardware just like the 1 Mark III, just with a bit less RAM. Snapdragon 888 performs as expected here, which is to say it's very fast in almost everything I do, but warms up quite easily. It doesn't really get too warm in day-to-day use or when playing games like Mobile Legends or COD Mobile. I'm guessing the phone is probably being more aggressive when it comes to thermal management due to the smaller body. Even when testing the camera under a hot sunny day, it doesn't really get too hot to touch for me. It does get quite warm, but actually not as much as some other phones I've tried. I didn't see any overheating warning, and the phone worked just fine throughout my testing, so no complaints from me here. The 5 Mark III actually has the same battery size as the 1 Mark III, which is pretty impressive for such a compact device. Charging speed is just okay, but it's not a big deal for me since battery life has been pretty good. Even with the relatively power-hungry Snapdragon 888 along with the high refresh rate display, I've been able to get through a full day of use pretty easily. The 5 Mark III is still running Android 11, and Sony's UI is not too heavy or overbearing. They have switched to using mostly Google's apps, even for their keyboard. It's fast and responsive for the most part and looks pretty much like stock Android. I like that during the first boot, they offer the option to choose what I want or don't want on the phone. There are still a few bloatware despite that, but most of them can be disabled. Apart from the more basic stuff like double tap to wake or swiping down the home screen for notifications, I really like some of the extra features they have here. I like to take care of my devices, especially battery longevity, so it's nice to be able to limit charging based on battery percentage. Sony also has one of the most comprehensive and customizable gaming modes I've seen. I can tweak the contrast of the display, tweak the EQ to hear footsteps better, I can choose to power the phone directly and bypass charging to reduce heat, and many more. I can even set up profiles for each game. And this works for apps like Google Maps as well, which is really useful. So for example, I can set it to use less power and to bypass charging so that the phone doesn't heat up too much while using navigation. SightSense is sort of useful when it comes to multitasking, but I don't really use it all that much. It also has a bunch of extra Sony specific features like 360 audio and whatnot, but I don't really use those features. All in all, I like the software experience here. There are still some minor stutters here and there, and I wished I could double tap to turn off the screen, but a lot of the features are really useful to me and well thought out. Moving on to camera performance, the 5 Mark III has the same set of cameras found on the 1 Mark III, just without the ITOF sensor. This includes the unique variable telephoto camera and Zeiss T-Star lens coating. It also has a bunch of features like eye tracking autofocus, a really fast burst mode, and 4K 120fps video recording. Sony's camera apps also placed a huge focus on manual controls. While I think the manual controls are great, especially when I'm trying to get product shots or if there's a specific effect that I'm trying to go for, they're not something I use a lot in my daily life because of the lack of an on-screen shutter button. Since I like using a case on my phone, it makes the button harder to press, which means a higher chance of getting camera shake unless I'm using a tripod or a countdown timer. So most of the time, I'm actually just shooting in basic mode. Anyway, the images taken by the 5 Mark III in basic mode are still pretty nice. They might not look that impressive at first glance if you're used to phones with more aggressive HDR processing, but I actually like Sony's more natural looking style of image processing. Most of the time, colors and contrast looks more natural to me, and details are not over sharpened. Like this shot of the Malayan statue for example. It might look a bit dark, but that's how it should be because the sun is shining from behind the statue. That said, if you really want the Malayan to be a bit brighter, you can change the touch to adjust setting so that the exposure will be based on the area that you have selected. So if you don't care as much about getting a more natural lighting, you can just use this setting. Low light shots are a bit of a mixed bag for me. It's able to perform decently well when the scene detection activates the correct mode, and it tends to keep night shots darker so they actually look like shots taken at night. But if the scene detection fails to get the correct mode, I sometimes end up with slightly blurry shots from the slower shutter speed. So in this regard, I think having a dedicated night mode would really improve the experience. This will help out the secondary cameras as well, since they don't perform that well in low light. However, as long as it's not too dark, the image quality from the secondary cameras are pretty good. The ultra-wide-angle camera has decent sharpness all around, and same goes for the telephoto camera as long as you don't push it too far. The variable telephoto lens is really unique, but range is still quite limited. There is no macro mode here, but it's not a big deal for me because I can just use digital zoom on the main camera. I actually prefer this approach when taking close-up shots. There is less distortion on the subject, and because the phone can be a bit further away, I don't have to deal with the phone blocking the light or casting shadows in the shot. Video capture in basic mode is pretty decent looking, and the Cinema Pro app can shoot in 4K 120fps, which is fun, but I'm not a fan of the crop to 21:9, and I find that HLG HDR is a little harder to deal with, especially with indoor lighting. I actually shot an entire review using the 5 Mark III and the Cinema Pro app, and while the results are decent, there are quite a few shots where things looked a little blotchy or soft looking. Maybe it's the editing software I'm using, or maybe I didn't optimize the settings as well. But while I was looking for ways to improve the quality, I saw someone mention that it's possible to sideload the Video Pro app from the Xperia Pro I, so I gave that a try, and it actually works really well. I shot another review with the 5 Mark III using the Video Pro app, and I'm happy enough with the results that I might just keep shooting future reviews with this phone. So here's hoping that Sony will officially release this app for more of their devices. Oh, and I also hope that Sony will implement focus peaking for their camera apps, because it can be a bit harder to see if something is perfectly in focus on a smaller screen. Overall, while I really enjoyed shooting with the 5 Mark III, and I think it's a very capable shooter, I can also see why some folks might not like it as much. While other phones will do computational processing to try and make every single shot look good, no matter whether it's true to life or not, Sony is sticking with a more traditional approach. While that is nice in its own way, the slightly finicky scene detection in low light leaves much to be desired, and it does have a higher learning curve if you want better results. So I'm hoping that for their next major update, Sony would implement some of the things I've mentioned earlier, and perhaps work on making the cameras easier to use for regular consumers. Oh, and having a better front-facing camera would be great too, because the one on the 5 Mark III is not that good. Anyway, feel free to check out the link in the video description below if you want to see more camera samples from the phone. In conclusion, despite a few shortcomings, I really like the Xperia 5 Mark III. I think the price could be a bit better, but I'm willing to look past that because it's hard to find this combination of features anywhere else. The phone just has so many things that I like. It's compact but has good battery life and performance, it has IP65 and 6.8 rating, it has expandable storage, it has stereo speakers, it has a 3.5mm jack with good audio output. I like the more natural looking camera processing and video quality. I also love the taller aspect ratio of the display. So if you like the same things that I do, and none of the shortcomings I've mentioned are deal breakers for you, the Xperia 5 Mark III is a fantastic option. That said, I think my needs from a phone are quite different from regular consumers, so unless you happen to like some of the unique features that the phone offers, it's a little harder to recommend since they're more expensive than even the iPhone 13 or Galaxy S21. Both of them are still relatively compact and probably more suitable for the average consumer. I know it's a bit of a cop-out, but in the end, it really depends on your preference. The Xperia 5 Mark III works great for me, but it might not work well for you. Anyway, I'm hoping that this video would at least help you make a more informed buying decision. Thanks for watching this video, and see you guys on the next one.